Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. You're joined by me, Mark, and by Reese as well, who's alongside me here for the weekly F1 podcast. And today's title is the fact that Red Bull are breaking records. Indeed, they are breaking many records. After yesterday's win in Hungary for Max Verstappen, we see Red Bull get 12 consecutive wins in a row in F1, the first team ever to do so, taking away the record from Mercedes, of course. And it was a great day for them out yesterday. And of course, every Monday we have this show. And be sure to come and join us, ask us some questions, let us know your thoughts on the last week of F1 that we've had. And otherwise, we'll just go over general news in F1. And of course, we're going to be going over a little bit of the weekend that just occurred for us. Reese, how are we doing?
Yes, I'm very well, thanks. And yourself, finally rested up after what was a very long weekend. I do hope, though, that you titled this video "It's Broken" because, of course, Red Bull have broken their records, but Lando Norris also managed to break their record-winning trophy yesterday on the podium. He managed to smack a champagne bottle, as we often see in his podium celebrations, and that knocked Max Verstappen's porcelain Hungarian Grand Prix winning trophy on the ground, and it smashed into pieces, and it's estimated that it's worth about 40,000 euros.
Yeah, I know. So quite a costly expense. No,
yes.
Yeah, and for all that money you can supposedly replace it, it's not quite the sentimental value. It takes a while for this trophy to be made. So a bit of a
about 4 to 6 months indeed for that trophy to be made by the artist.
So quite a stuff up there from Norris. But let's just go very quickly, of course, to that recent news, which is the fact that Hungary Grand Prix was over the weekend, and so Max Verstappen passed Lewis Hamilton to deliver Red Bull their record 12th consecutive win. And Hamilton finished in fourth and was so close to actually taking Perez. If he just had an extra lap, I think he probably would have started to compete with him right there at the top, but not to be. So Hamilton only finished in fourth.
We're currently also sitting on some really interesting stats. Max Verstappen is looking for his 44th win, and Lewis Hamilton has not won in 53 races. So some very interesting stats at the moment.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously with their race numbers.
Yeah. Just going through an article here, just basing off of yesterday's Grand Prix. Verstappen got an excellent start from P2 on the grid to draw alongside the pole-sitting Hamilton and claim the lead going into turn 1. Lando Norris claimed another second place for McLaren, whilst Sergio Perez pulled off a number of aggressive overtakes in the other Red Bull to finish third after starting in ninth. Perez had to hold off a charging Hamilton in the closing stages as the Mercedes finally came alive again on lower fuel, but the 7-time world champion had to settle for fourth on a difficult afternoon where he lost 3 positions on the opening lap. Oscar Piastri was fifth with his and Norris's results helping McLaren strengthen their grip on P5 in the Constructors' Championship after Alpine suffered another double DNF after Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon collided as a result of some first corner pinball on the opening lap. George Russell made an excellent recovery from 18th on the grid to finish 6th, promoted a position after Charles Leclerc dropped a place to 7th due to a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Carlos Sainz was unable to progress after a brilliant start had lifted him from P11 to P6 and finished 8th in the second Ferrari ahead of the 2 Aston Martins as Fernando Alonso led home Lance Stroll. Daniel Ricciardo recovered from opening lap contact to finish 13th in his first race for AlphaTauri, 2 places ahead of his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. So lots of very interesting things happened over the weekend. And Reese, let's just go very quickly over the race. How was the race weekend, do you think?
Yes, well, I thought it was a very interesting race weekend, of course, off the back of Silverstone, where we've heard that there's been some new tyre compounds that Pirelli have been bringing in, which don't necessarily suit the Red Bulls anymore. I mean, we see that in qualifying, that they have just fallen back a little bit, possibly due to this new tyre compound. Nonetheless, they were able to take the win yet again with their biggest ever gap to their competitors. I think it was close to 40 seconds in the end there, Mark. But once again, dominance out on track. Good day for the McLarens, of course, with Lando Norris finishing in P2, Oscar in P5. I was a bit disappointed to have seen Oscar fall off the podium yet again, but there was some stronger cars coming up through the midfield. So, I mean, we had Lewis Hamilton on a bit of a shocking start, unfortunately, and he fell back to P4. But then once again, just I don't think their car is as competitive as they're hoping. It's getting there. It's certainly showing its pace in qualifying, but still lacking a little bit of race pace. There were quite a few winners and losers though from the race, Mark.
Yeah, I mean one of the main losers I'm going to go straight to is that of Zhou Guanyu, who
Yes, I
had
was going to say major loser, unfortunately.
yeah, as I say, he had a brilliant qualifying session on Saturday where he came and put himself all the way up into fifth. I mean, both Alfa Romeos making Q3 was great for that team. They're hoping they'll going to get some points this weekend, but not to be. Zhou stalled on the start, and his entire day just went from hero to zero as quickly as possible, and he finished the race all the way down in 16th position after being lapped as well by those leaders. So a terrible, terrible day for him. And in an interview, he said the elation from yesterday's result, this of course being Saturday, turned on its head, and there is no denying that today, being yesterday, has been very disappointing. We are yet to gather all the information about exactly what went on at the start. I went on full throttle, then all of a sudden something went wrong, and I had to do the entire procedure again just in order to do a proper start. So a terrible, terrible start for Zhou Guanyu there. And not only that, he once he did manage to get the car going, he had to go and
he didn't keep it clean.
yeah, he had to keep it clean, which he did not do. He went straight into the back of Daniel Ricciardo, who went into Esteban Ocon, who went into Gasly, and resulted in Alpine's removal from the race. So he really did have quite an eventful first lap.
I mean, it's in races like this where I start to agree with people calling for people who cause a crash for that team to have to pay for all of the costs that come in due to that. Because I mean, in a cost cap era, this will cost a fortune for Alpine to go all the way to Hungary, race both their cars, and not even get more than 3 laps into a race. It's just mind blowing, really.
Yeah, indeed. And we move on, though, to another winner of the weekend, that being Sergio Perez in that Red Bull. He managed to start in ninth and finished third, had some great overtakes there. He almost came under pressure from Hamilton at the end there, but seemingly did well. And it just unfortunately frustrates you because you think, what would have happened if he had started where he should have been, near around the top 3 cars, of course, on the grid. So if he had managed to start there, he might have tried to challenge Verstappen for that race win, but not to be. Started in ninth, but at least got himself onto the podium. Perez had this to say. He said, the track was unbelievably dirty offline, so in the last laps I had some pickup going through the back markers, which meant I lost a few seconds. I recovered towards the end, but it was just too late. That, of course, him trying to get to that second position ahead of Norris before then coming under pressure from Hamilton behind him.
Yes, it was a bit of a difficult day out there for Sergio Perez, but nonetheless, still showing that he does have that pace in that sister Red Bull car, something we've been waiting to see for quite some time. He's been off the pace in qualifying, still was off the pace in qualifying this weekend, but is still showing some good race pace at least.
Yeah, and now we move to a loser of the weekend, and that major loser again is Alpine. And we've gone over what happened to Alpine, but that's 2 races in a row now that they have DNF'd both cars. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yes, it certainly is unbelievable. I mean, we don't expect to see both cars in the team getting out in pretty much the first corner. It's really bad luck for them, of course. And as I said, it's going to have cost them an absolute fortune to have brought both of those cars racing and not even to get halfway through the race.
Yeah, so a terrible day for Alpine, and they really want to try and nail it this weekend in Belgium. Because before the break, they really want to try and finish a race, I think, at this point. Lando Norris was a winner, of course. He came second, I suppose. But a great race day for him. You know, he was never really going to compete with Max Verstappen in that Red Bull, but managed to beat the entire rest of the grid, including his teammate, who did come out ahead of a little bit in that pit stop right near the beginning of the race, resulting in him overtaking his teammate, and Oscar Piastri fell as a result as well. But Norris himself managed to win. Managed to be a winner of the day, coming second for McLaren. A great race for him, though he did break Max Verstappen's trophy. But I mean, a great race for him.
Yes. Yes, it was a great race for him, despite the fact that he did break a €40,000 trophy. I think he's going to be quite happy with his performance. 2 podiums in a row. I think now that he has tasted the champagne yet again, he kind of knows that it's possible with this car. They downplayed their possible performance for this weekend. I was saying from the beginning that they did have the pace to do well here. I think they're going to be quite rapid out in Spa.
And a team that was
Mix
dubbed
of,
to have, yeah, so a team that was dubbed to
sorry.
have had a a sorry, you threw me off there. It's just a team that was dubbed to have had a bit of pace this weekend, but turned not to be and was a loser of the weekend was Aston Martin. Yeah, Alonso had this to say about his weekend and with Aston Martin. He said, "We were not quick enough to challenge anyone in front. We didn't have any threats from behind. So 3 points, 9th and 10th was the maximum today." Yeah, not looking good for Aston Martin, who started the season so well. And we're thinking Alonso could try and do something, but just not seemingly going well. They've got lots of work to do in that break, I think, coming up.
Yes, I'd certainly think they're going to have to work on a few upgrades for that car because they are just falling off the pace a bit. I mean, I did say though that with these new tires that Pirelli brought from Silverstone, the biggest losers on those sets of tires is that Aston Martins, and I'm quite disappointed to see that, of course, because they've been having a brilliant season so far, and they have just started falling away in the past few races. Hopefully, they can just get to the bottom of it in the winter break. Hopefully, we'll start seeing some improvements from the next race out in Spa as well. Not very long until we do get racing in Spa. I think that is one of my favorite tracks of the season, and it's going to be quite an exciting race.
Yeah, Spa is coming up this weekend. You can catch it here on Forever Motorsports with me and Reese. We'll be doing it yet again. We had a great weekend this last weekend out in Hungary. Let's hopefully have a great weekend coming up as well in Belgium. So we move on to some other news, and that's still with Red Bull and the fact that there's been some revelations and some understandings released in the last week with regards to cost caps being breached in the 2022 season. And there's three major teams that are going to be announced before the break. So that's going to be sometime during this week that they're going to be announcing what's going to happen there. And that's to do with breaking the budget cap for 2022. Though Christian Horner says the team was several million below the F1 cost cap in 2022. So yeah, it's all up in the air because the three rumored teams to have breached that cost cap were Red Bull, Aston Martin, and I do believe the third one was, is it McLaren?
McLaren or Mercedes,
Yeah.
there's a few, well, unknowns still at this point. They are saying we might find out before the summer break or during the summer break. I certainly hope we find out sooner than that. Already, Christian Horner, though, going on the defensive, saying his team was multiple million under that cost cap. Uh, I'm sure he'll be hoping so because they don't want to get another penalty like they have had this year.
Indeed, and he went and on an interview and was talking about all of the budget caps for 2022. Of course, the cap for 2022 was $140 million. And of course, the cap is going a little bit down each year. But he said this. He said last year Max Verstappen damaged one front wing, and Checo had a crash in Montreal. And again, we had a very limited amount of development on the car. So we were several million below the cap last year, and because accident damage and development, they're huge costs, and they had very few of them, of course. He said, obviously, this year the biggest handicap we have is the lack of wind tunnel time. It's significantly less runs in a week than any of our competitors, so we have to be very disciplined on where we focus our development. And then also asked about his thoughts, who people think Red Bull haven't been punished enough this year after breaching the cost cap in 2021. Horner answered this: "Believe me, the lack of wind tunnel time we have compared to our competitors is a massive compromise. If wind tunnels don't count, why don't we get rid of them?" He says, "It's easy to throw shade when you're not performing. It's one of the things that in F1 that will always continue to happen. I'm just incredibly proud of the job that our team is doing with the constraints and handicap we have to be performing at the level we have this year." So, yeah, Christian Horner, very defensive, saying it's absolutely not Red Bull and saying we have no issues here. So, trying to, I think, kill the story before it starts, but yeah, still up in the air. They still reckon Red Bull might have been one of those teams.
Yes, I mean they'll certainly be, as they were last year, quick to try and squash those rumors. Hopefully, for them at least, it isn't them that has breached those cost cap. The FIA also being quite quick to try and squash those rumors before they make an official press release. They did the same though last year, so there's no hiding it really. When there's smoke, there's normally fire in Formula One. So we do expect to at least see 2 to 3 teams breaching that cost cap. Hopefully, we will hear quite soon from the FIA.
Yeah, and Wolf has also been speaking to the media with regards to the cost cap, and he says we need to stop any breach of the cost cap. and Toto Wolff, in an interview, said this: "They came back with tons of questions to lots of teams, and that shows how robust the process is, which is good." This is, of course, talking about communicating with teams about their submissions. He said strong auditors are beneficial for F1. We need to stop any kind of unintentional or intentional breach of the cost cap. It's like technical and sporting regulations. The big teams have thousands of people and various projects, commercial and non-commercial. For us, it's a bit easier because we have everything in one entity. The employees are all in one place, and you can see where they have been attributed. It becomes more complex when you have more variety of subsidiaries. I've never been shy of saying that, saying with the 2026 regulations, we should get rid of that overall, with regards to budget caps and otherwise. In the real world, it's quite a challenge because we are making revenue and money with our engineering projects. That means we cannot assign a person who is working in F1, not even for a minute, into non-F1. But I think it's the right thing to do for the sport to say this is F1 and this is not F1 with regards to separating the different stuff. And the moment someone spends 10 seconds on an F1 project, you should be fully in F1. That's the way we need to go. So yeah, being very, very adamant on holding on to the cost cap regulations and being stringent in that regard for most teams. So surely Mercedes, if they do live by that, aren't one of the teams that's breached the cost cap.
Yes, just reading the FIA's response though to that cost cap breach, well, fake news pretty much, because they haven't even finished or concluded their findings. In their response, they said, "We'd like to reiterate the ongoing process preceding financial regulation certification for the teams, none of which have been informed of their certification status." So none of the teams even know if they have broken the cost cap just yet. The auditing fieldwork is still ongoing and is scheduled to conclude in the upcoming weeks, after which there will be a period required for the finalization of the review. So still some time needed to even come to an actual conclusion over all of the reviews of the 2022 cost cap. So yeah, I think it is just fake news at this point.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with regards to that, and we'll see whether or not teams did breach that cost cap. But if they did, of course, we're going to see similar sort of penalties that we saw on Red Bull for this season. We'll see that in the 2024 season, which is, of course, next year. But we've still got a few races before then, so nobody's really going to take too many hits for the remainder of the season. But we pretty much know Red Bull's going to win the Constructors' Championship. So it's all about who comes second at this point in time. Now, moving on to the rest of the season, there's something else interesting that we can talk about. And it's, I suppose, something we don't think about and that we have to think about now that we're in Las Vegas this year. The circuit in Las Vegas, of course, goes right down all of the famous landmarks and right down the strip, going past many, many tall high-rise buildings, hotels, and otherwise. And I've got an article here from crash.net, which goes and says F1 threatens obstructions and barricades unless Las Vegas hotels pay to view the Grand Prix. So with all these hotels being within viewing distance of the Grand Prix, a lot of people might well just book a hotel room that's got a window looking out to the track and say, you know what, that's me watching Formula One. It's a great seat in the house. I'm here watching it.
People do the same thing in Monaco, but I don't understand why they'd want to block that. How are you going to set up a barricade high enough to block the high rises in Las Vegas? It's certainly not going to work.
Well, you know what they might do? They might ask and request and demand that all of the hotels go and put screens on the windows. Maybe they have to stop anybody from looking outside through their windows. So
Gosh, I don't think you can do that. I think that's a bit too far in terms of legality. I think the hotels would certainly have a foot to stand on in terms of that. I mean, it's their property. They don't have to block windows, surely, for people racing on the streets.
But yeah, in this article here, it says a new row has been kicked off in Formula One ahead of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. The Vegas hotel and casino owners are claiming their views of the circuit will be intentionally blocked by F1 unless they agree to pay massive sums of money for the license to watch it, the New York Post has reported. The Vegas Grand Prix is set for November 18th and is perhaps the standout date on the 2023 F1 calendar. Venues in Vegas that overlook the circuit will be charged $1,500 per person or face obstructions like barricades, stands, and light stanchions blocking their views, the report states. They are literally shaking people down, saying they will obstruct views unless they pay them, an anonymous casino owner was quoted. It seems insane that they are asking money for a public event that is taking place in the streets. A different source was quoted, there is a real chance of obstructing views with stands and barricades. I know the hotels are upset about it, and they are trying to figure out if they'll play along. Of course, I'm sure this is a little bit of clickbait, but, it could be interesting if that actually is the case.
Coming from an event background like I do, I mean, these things are normally planned well in advance, especially the placement of grandstands. So you would think that it's not something that they could put strategically to block the hotels. Yeah, I don't know if there's much truth to the story, but if it is true, that is a bit opportunistic from those Formula One organizers who are, of course, possibly organizing this race in Vegas. I don't think it has much to do from actual Formula One group. Maybe it's more organizers of the Vegas race.
Indeed. And we're going towards closing out the F1 podcast for the week. Reese, what other news have you been seeing for the last week here?
Well, a interesting article from News24, a local South African newspaper here, is just saying McLaren must be prepared to thwart off poachers as Lando Norris's Formula One stock rises. It's a very good title for sure, because Lando Norris is becoming quite a bit of hot commodity in the Formula One driver market. A lot of teams supposedly penning him down for a pre-season or a pre-contract with them. Rumors of him being in a pre-contract with Red Bull, with Ferrari. Of course, it's all rumors at this point, but I think there is going to be quite a lot of interest in signing him to a good performing team. Of course, McLaren are starting to show some great pace out on track, so he'll be happy with where he is at the moment. But say if the likes of a Mercedes or a Red Bull jump at giving him an offer, what would you do if you were in Lando Norris's shoes?
Well, I think the thing is right now that he's got McLaren's team seems to have improved dramatically, and he's in a very competitive car right now. I mean, he came second 2 weekends in a row now. So
that's exactly what Zach Brown said.
So why would he leave?
It says here, Zach Brown, in response to how to keep Lando Norris at McLaren, he said, "I think the way you keep Norris is you give him a good race car. He loves the team, he believes in the team, and he was a bit frustrated at the start of the season, as we all were, of course. But now he's finished second for the second time. As long as we keep doing that, I think he'll stick around."
Yeah, and that's exactly
I think it's true.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So if McLaren can maintain and continue to be a competitive team on the track, then Lando Norris doesn't really need to go anywhere. He can be the poster boy, especially considering the likelihood of him going to Red Bull is very unlikely. He likes to think of himself as a number one driver. Going to Red Bull, you've got Max Verstappen there. It's unlikely that you're going to be favoured over him, so it's going to be quite difficult there. You might get a situation with a lot of infighting. Red Bull might not see a point in that. But if you should move to any other team, you're thinking, why? Because Ferrari are certainly worse off than McLaren at the moment. McLaren's car clearly quicker than the Ferrari in the last couple of Grand Prix. Ferrari absolutely nowhere for the last couple of seasons. So Ferrari's not a team that he'd be considering. Mercedes have got two very strong drivers that don't look like they're going to be replaced anytime soon. Lewis Hamilton rumored to have accepted a 2-year extension to his contract. So, I don't see Lando Norris leaving McLaren.
No, certainly he looks quite comfortable there for the time being. I wouldn't expect him to run away from there all just yet, as they are seeming to ramp up a little bit more in terms of their pace.
And any other news you've got for the last week here?
I'm just looking for something on Ferrari. I think we should just speak about them maybe for a little bit. We haven't spoken about
I can tell you about what I think.
A very disappointing race yesterday, of course. I'm still so confused as to why they did not swap Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz in the beginning stages. Yes, Carlos Sainz was on a set of softs, running a completely different race to Charles Leclerc running on a mediums for his first stint. Yeah, I think it was just a bit of a farce from Ferrari really yesterday. They could have possibly competed for that third step on the podium.
And their strategy as well. I mean, their pit stops were oddly placed yesterday compared to everybody else. They weren't quite matching everybody. They took a little bit longer to get into the pits. Sainz took way too long to get into the pits. We said that at the time. We said this is a bit of a waste to come into the pits so late. And then Leclerc also had a mare of a pit stop. His first pit stop was a 9.4-second pit stop. Terrible. Which basically
Yeah,
ruined his race
struggling
as
to get
well.
off the rear left, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I mean, Ferrari, come on, please.
I
We
know.
just want to see some closer racing, guys. We don't want to see you making stupid strategic issues for your drivers. And I mean, I think we heard Charles Leclerc getting super frustrated once again with his pit wall because they're just making bad decisions.
Yeah, and I suppose, we talk about Lando Norris possibly moving on to places, and we're thinking actually genuinely it's unlikely because McLaren seem to be doing things right at the moment. But Charles Leclerc must surely be thinking, why am I staying at Ferrari at this point in time?
Yes, I mean, he is still a young racing driver in the prime of his career. Of course, he still has a lot to learn. And I think last season proved that at the fact that he isn't as consistent over the entire race season when you are fighting for a championship. And we did see those crashes and mistakes from him. But that's what you get from a young racing driver who's still learning how to fight for championships. I mean, he's done it in the other formulas, but Formula One is a completely different game. We want to see him getting more opportunities to fight for a championship, though, not getting sent to the therapist by Ferrari.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I mean, Ferrari just need to sort their rubbish out. They really do. It's shocking. It's not good enough. They're a team that certainly
Sad.
has the backing from most of the world to do well, and they're just not doing well. I just certainly hope they fix things before next season because I want to see a competitive season next season. We keep saying this, but surely 2024 will be better for everyone, including that of Ferrari.
Yes, and I think we have both just been banned from Maranello, Mark. So I don't
No,
think I'm going to be
no,
able
I
to go back
haven't.
there again,
No,
unfortunately.
I
But
haven't.
I
I
think they're
have
going to have
not.
a poster of me on their front wall saying, "Do not let this man in."
I doubt it very much. We love Ferrari. We
We
just want
do,
them to do
of course,
better.
we
Of
do.
course, they've been useless. Just be better. That's what we want to see. But guys, thank you so much for tuning into the F1 podcast for this week. You've been joined by me and Reese. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the future videos, and turn on notifications so you can see all future uploads on the channel. You've been watching Forever Motorsports. Red Bull, of course, breaking that record, 12 wins in a row now. Can they do it in Spa, in Belgium? Join us on Thursday as we preview it, of course. And guys, have a great week further. We'll bring you news as we see it otherwise. But we'll see you this weekend for the Grand Prix in Belgium.